This is first part of how to animate in Blender. In this video, you will learn the basics of animation, which will allow you to start animating. We will go through things like starting with one single shape or one single object, getting to understand timeline, rendering and exporting animation. As you see, I use the can that we modeled in video 4 and 5. You can pick one of the objects that you modeled during the first week of Blender. I will try to make this video as short and as simple as possible, mentioning just the key elements. First, let's move from the layout workspace into the animation workspace. And to do that, we have to go to in the upper panel. We can see we are on layout and we have to just move to the animation and click it. This animation workspace will have two new areas next to the ones that we already know. A camera view that is on the left side, as well as the timeline at the bottom. This camera view panel will let us see through the camera that is in the 3D viewport while we are animating. Timeline in Blender is called dope sheet, which is a little bit more advanced than the timeline itself. Here we will add keyframes. Animating in Blender is fairly simple. We will need to add starting keyframe as well as ending keyframe. Everything in between will be filled by Blender automatically. As a starting point, I want to disable background view. I will go to Layers panel and click on this eye on the right side to make this background layer invisible. I disable that and now I can see that my can is standing right in the center, right on the 0 on x-axis as well on 0 on y-axis. However, I can see that on z-axis on the right side here, it is 1.5 meters. That makes sure that the can is above our grid or above our background. I want to start this animation when our can will move into the view and move out. So I will select can in the 3D viewport. I will click G key on keyboard for grab and X key on keyboard just to move on one side. I will move it somewhere here and press again. That makes sure that this can stays here. To insert first keyframe, I will click I key on the keyboard, and in this insert keyframe menu, I can select what kind of keyframe I want to add. In this case, I want to add location keyframe. I will select this one. And now I can see that in this dope sheet, I have keyframes added. And you can see we have summary of what's happening. So in the second line, you can see that I'm animating can. This is the name that comes from layer panel. And you can see what kind of action this can has. In this case, it has object transformation. I will click on this disclosure icon to expand object transformations. When it opens, I can see that I have X location, Y location, and Z locations. And in these three fields, I just added keyframe. Right now, I want to add another keyframe. So first I have to select on which keyframe I want to end my animation. In this case, I want to make animation last for 2 seconds. And in Blender, 24 frames by default is 1 second. So I have to move this blue playhead by clicking it and dragging to frame number 48. And with this selected here, I could now select my can again. So I see that I will select the can again. So I'll click G to move this can and X to move it only on X location. Now I can see that it moves through the camera view and I want to move it somewhere here, and here it will be the end of animation. So I'll click here the can again. In the transform panel on the right side, I get orange color on location X and green color on Y and Z axis. Green color means that there were no changes because I was moving this can only on X axis. So there was only change on x-axis. Now with the can move to the place where I want to keep it, and the blue playhead is on frame 48, I should add another keyframe. I can do it by shortcut I, or I can do it in dope sheet. I can click on key and dope sheet and add and select insert keyframes. When I select this, I get another menu. I can select to add keyframes on all channels or only selected. I will select all channels for now, and I can see that in the dope sheet I added new frames. You can see here that now you can see that the keyframes on x-axis were marked differently than keyframes on y and z axis, and this is because keyframe on y axis between frame 1 and frame 48, it never changed. That's why you see an extension of basically the same information over these 2 seconds. The same is with z axis. There is no change. Now I will click on play key here on the bottom to start animation, and here I can see that this blue playhead starts moving, and it moves from frame 48 all the way to the frame 250. And this is because right here at the bottom of the timeline, the bottom of the dope sheet, I have start position at 1 and end position at 250. I will stop animation by moving here and click space on the keyboard to stop it, as well space for play animation. I will go to end animation here and change 250 into frame 48. I will just type 48 on the keyboard and click enter. And now if I click space again, my animation will start playing on frame 1 and at frame 48, and it will be looping until I press space key again. So I'll press space key again to stop it, and this is actually animation I want to do. If I just scroll it manually, this blue playhead, I can see that the can goes into the frame and moves out. Now I want the scan to go back to its initial position. I will move this blue playhead from frame 48 to frame 96. So I will keep the playhead on frame 96, and now I want to have exactly the same keyframes that I had on frame 1 in this location. I can do it in different ways as well. I could just enter in the transform panel new numbers and it will be fine. So now I can just go to this summary, to the top frame. I can click on this frame, click Shift D, and while holding the mouse I can just move it to this frame 96 and click Escape. Shift D will duplicate selected frames, and I can drag them to a new location where I want to have. So I will click space to play the animation, and now you can see that it animates only between frame 1 and 48. I will stop it by clicking space again, and this is because still at the bottom we have starting of animation at 1 and ending at 48. So I'll, instead of end 48, I will delete 48 and write 96. 96 will give us 4 seconds animation. I click space again to start the animation, and you can see that now my can goes one direction and goes back. And this is the only thing I wanted to do. I will click space. This is enough for this first video.